A few years back I saw a movie called Bone Tomahawk, which I thought was really good. Then the same guy, S. Craig Saller, made another movie called Brawl in Cell Block 99, but I didn't realize it was the same guy, so I never got around to watching it. Until this came out, which is his third movie. So I decided to watch both of them. First Brawl, then this, and I gotta say, I was a fan of his before, but now I'm an even bigger fan, because I loved Brawl in Cell Block 99. I thought it was really good, and this one's good too, but probably my least favorite of his. Mostly because of the runtime and the slow nature of it. It's over 2.5 hours, and it's a real slow burn. Which I didn't hate, but I'm not sure if it needed to be quite this drawn out. It had to be over 2 hours, for sure. But 2 hours 40? Not so sure. But it feels almost like a nitpick too, because I did enjoy pretty much every scene. There were a few that felt a bit redundant, but overall not that many. But what I really love about this guy's movies is the visceral feel of them. He's really good at making violent, fun, and impactful movies. But it took a long time for this one to really get going, and that's probably my main complaint. Like the first 40 minutes or so is just straight up character introductions. And at that point we don't even know how these characters relate to each other. You just have to assume they're gonna be connected in some way. And well, the story is about these two cops, Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn, and a few other characters too, of the more criminal kind. And through an interesting series of events, their paths eventually cross. However, it's not your typical cops and robbers type scenario either. There's a bit of a twist to it, that's about as much as I'm gonna say. But for the longest time the movie just jumps around from one seemingly unrelated event to another, from one character to another, without any real context to the connection there. It's just here's this one character doing this one thing, and here's another character doing something very different. And there's like 4 different characters in different situations. And again, you just have to trust that it all comes together at some point. Which it does, but it takes a long time. And I just feel that could have been handled a little bit better. Like have them connected somehow. So it feels like one coherent story, and not like 4 different fragments that eventually come together. But I guess that mystery of how it's all connected is part of the charm too. But to me it did feel a bit disjointed for the first hour or so. However, after that, all the pieces start to slowly come together. And it does get to all the good stuff, the violence and the action. Eventually. Not that the character development wasn't good too. And the dialogue. It was. And that's the upside of taking it slow. All the characters get a fair amount of screen time. Sometimes perhaps more than they need. Wink wink, nudge nudge. But nothing feels rushed and you really feel like you get to know the characters and who they are. And this is probably Saller's most, I don't know, character-driven movie maybe? Especially Brawl was very plot-heavy and that's what drove the story forward. But here it feels like the characters drive the plot, not the other way around. And it's a very well-written movie too, and probably the least over the top of his movies. Like the other ones had some very heavy genre elements to them. Things that weren't the most realistic ever. But this stays away from that a little bit more. There's some of that in this, definitely. And that's what makes it fun, to be honest. But it's a clear step toward being more grounded and realistic. But at the same time this is definitely the most complex and ambitious of his movies too. And how it all comes together is pretty impressive. It does deliver. However, I'm not so sure I want him to make more grounded movies. Because he's got a very unique and visceral style. And that's the fun of it. And no one makes movies like he does. I guess Tarantino's similar in that regard. They make over-the-top action that I actually deeply enjoy and respect. But these movies feel like high-class genre films. He takes concepts that could easily turn into cheesy, lame, formulaic schlock, and makes it fun and entertaining. And I do hope he keeps that element in his movies, because I personally enjoy it a lot. And even though this is probably my least favorite of his movies, it's still very good. And I didn't really have any issues with the content, just the pacing, especially in the beginning. It just takes so long to really get going. But other than that, I don't have any real complaints. Just some minor nitpicks here and there that I'm not gonna get into. So would I recommend it? Yeah, give it a shot. But you should also check out his other movies. Or don't. I'm not your dad. But I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to buy myself some gold bullion. And hey, why not drop a comment below or check out another review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.